The glass doors of the Oakwood Plaza Mall slid open with a soft whoosh, and in walked a figure who turned heads almost instantly. He was tall, calm, and had a quiet confidence that didn't ask for attention but naturally attracted it. It wasn't the way he walked or how calm he looked that got people talking, it was the bright red hat he was wearing. The air in the mall seemed to shift as curious glances turned into murmurs that spread like wildfire. "Wait, is that Barron Trump?" a teenage boy near the fountain whispered, clutching his phone like it was gold. "It can't be him, right?" his friend replied, already zooming in on the figure to snap a picture. Barron, now in his late teens, looked unfazed as he strolled past stores, seemingly oblivious to the growing wave of attention. His tall frame moved with an ease that spoke of someone who had long grown used to being watched. The red hat, simple yet bold, clashed against the polished air of the upscale mall, its color loud against the neutrals of luxury storefronts and sleek decor. It wasn't meant to provoke, but for some, it did. His steps echoed softly as he made his way through the wide, tiled corridors. Families paused their casual browsing to turn their heads. Kids tugged on their parents' hands, whispering questions. A group of young women by a coffee shop angled their phones toward him, pretending to take selfies while capturing him in the background. "Why is he even here?" a man muttered near a pretzel stand, his voice loud enough to be heard, but not addressed. Still, Barron seemed immune to the attention. His expression was calm, almost serene, as if the stairs were background noise. It wasn't arrogance, far from it. He wasn't flaunting himself or seeking validation. If anything, he looked like someone who just wanted to be left alone. But the hat, glowing red under the mall's lights, seemed to take on a life of its own. As Barron paused in front of a tech store, inspecting the newest phone models displayed behind the glass, the whispers began to converge into something more pointed. "Isn't that the hat?" one voice piped up. "The MAGA hat?" The energy in the air grew thicker, tinged with tension. Some watched with curiosity, others with disapproval. The very presence of the hat seemed to divide opinions without a single word being spoken. Barron didn't waver. He adjusted the strap of his bag and turned toward the food court, where he likely planned to grab lunch. But each step he took seemed to pull more eyes toward him. Among the onlookers, a mall employee, a young security guard named Sam, watched from the second-floor balcony. He didn't know much about politics or headlines, but he knew this wasn't just any regular afternoon. The ripples of unease among patrons had reached his radio, where his manager's clipped voice now barked instructions. "Check it out. Someone's causing a stir near the food court. MAGA hat. Go handle it." Sam frowned. "Handle what?" he mumbled to himself, already heading toward the escalator. Downstairs, Barron moved toward an empty table near the far corner of the food court. He set his bag down and pulled out his phone, finally pausing for a moment of stillness. Around him, the crowd grew subtle but undeniable. It was as though people weren't just watching anymore. They were waiting for something to happen. And then, as if on cue, a polished figure emerged through the crowd. John Whitaker, the mall's manager, marched toward Barron's table with a look of unmistakable purpose. His sharp suit and clipped stride exuded authority, and his voice, though low, carried enough weight to cut through the hushed murmurs. "Excuse me, sir," John said, his tone both polite and firm. "I need to have a word with you." Barron looked up, unfazed but curious. Around them, the crowd seemed to hold its breath. Phones were lifted higher. The tension, like a taut string, hummed in the air. And just like that, what started as whispers was about to become something much bigger. Barron Trump looked up from his phone, calm but slightly puzzled, as he met the sharp gaze of the mall manager, John Whitaker. Around them, the crowd thickened. People were no longer pretending to browse. They were watching intently, their phones capturing every second. "Is there a problem?" Barron asked, his voice steady, polite, but carrying a quiet edge of confidence. John cleared his throat, adjusting his blazer as if to gather authority. "Sir, we have a policy here about political displays. I'm going to have to ask you to remove your hat or leave the premises." Hush fell over the crowd. The words echoed louder than they should have. All eyes were on Barron. The red hat, bright and bold, seemed to glow even brighter under the lights. Whispers erupted again. Did he just ask him to take off the hat? He can't seriously be kicking him out for that. Barron Trump stood still, his tall frame composed, but there was a flicker of disbelief in his eyes. Around him, the air was growing heavy, the hum of murmurs turning into a low buzz. Phones were everywhere now, recording the moment. The manager, John Whitaker, stood firm, his arms crossed, trying to project authority in a situation that was quickly spiraling beyond his control. "Sir," John repeated, his voice louder this time, "I'm asking you one last time. Remove the hat, or I'll have to call security." Barron's expression remained calm, though the crowd could sense something shifting beneath the surface. Instead of reacting angrily or escalating the situation, he took a deep breath. The calm in his demeanor made the tension even sharper, like the silence before a storm. "Let me understand something," Barron began, his tone respectful but edged with clarity. "I'm being asked to leave this mall because of a hat. I'm not causing a scene. I'm not bothering anyone. I'm here to shop, like everyone else." John faltered for a moment. The crowd murmured in agreement. Someone near the back whispered loudly, "He's right, though. It's just a hat." "It's not personal," John said quickly, clearly trying to regain his footing. "It's policy. We're a neutral establishment, and we don't allow political apparel that could make other guests uncomfortable." Barron tilted his head slightly, his face thoughtful. "Neutral," he repeated softly, as if weighing the word. "What's neutral about silencing someone's freedom to express themselves?" The crowd was hooked. Barron's calm response threw the entire room into suspense. Some in the crowd nodded, whispering to each other, "He's handling this better than anyone else would." Others shook their heads, torn between the manager's policy and Barron's quiet challenge. John could feel the shift happening. The situation wasn't just about a hat anymore, it was about something bigger. The phones in people's hands were more than recording devices. Now they were amplifiers, broadcasting every word and expression to the world beyond the mall walls. "Sir, this is private property," John insisted, his voice tight. "I'm not asking again. You need to leave." Barron looked around, his sharp gaze meeting the eyes of those watching him. The crowd had grown restless, their loyalty torn between sides. A teenage girl holding her phone whispered, "I can't believe this. He's not even doing anything wrong." Barron let out a small sigh. He picked up the shopping bag he'd set on the floor earlier, took a step toward the exit, and paused. Turning back to the manager, he said quietly, but firmly, "It's not about the hat. It's about how quick we are to judge people without understanding who they are." The crowd rippled with whispers again, his words cutting through like a lightning bolt. It wasn't anger in his voice, it was clarity, the kind that made people stop and think. Then, without further argument, Barron turned and began walking toward the exit. The silence behind him was deafening. A young boy near the front of the crowd tugged on his mother's sleeve and asked softly, "Mom, why did they make him leave?" John watched Barron walk away, his composure rattled. He could feel the weight of the crowd's stares, some judgmental, some questioning, but none supportive of what had just happened. For the first time, he wondered if he'd made a mistake. As Barron stepped outside into the afternoon light, the doors closed behind him, leaving an uneasy silence inside the mall. But out there where social media was already alive with videos, hashtags, and debates, the story was just beginning. Subscribe to stay updated on what happens next. This is about to take a turn you won't see coming. As Barron Trump stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, the doors of Oakwood Plaza Mall sliding closed behind him, he felt the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. He adjusted his red cap, his expression still calm, though a flicker of disappointment crossed his face. He hadn't expected to be made into a spectacle over something as simple as a hat. Inside, the atmosphere was still tense. John Whitaker, the manager, stood frozen in place, watching through the glass doors as Barron walked away. He shifted uneasily as the crowd continued to murmur. The tension hadn't dissolved, it had shifted. "What just happened?" Someone whispered loudly. "This is going viral for sure," another said, phone still pointed at the door. And viral it went. Within minutes, videos of the incident started surfacing across social media platforms. Titles like "Barron Trump kicked out over a hat" and "Mall manager shuts down Trump's son" began trending on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Videos showed Barron standing calmly while the manager spoke with growing tension, and people latched onto the contrast. The teenager's quiet dignity against the chaos around him. The online reaction was swift and fierce. On one side, people criticized the mall's decision, arguing that it was unfair to judge someone for wearing a hat. "Freedom of expression is for everyone," one commenter wrote under a viral clip. Another chimed in, "Barron Trump handled that better than most adults would. Respect." Others, however, defended the manager's position, citing private property rights. A business has the right to enforce its policies. If you don't like it, leave, one user posted, sparking a heated debate below the comment. As the clip spread, influencers and commentators weighed in. A popular YouTuber posted a reaction video titled, "Barron Trump shows class after being kicked out. This needs to be talked about." A Twitter thread broke down the incident step by step, praising Barron's composure and criticizing the manager's seemingly overzealous enforcement of the policy. Meanwhile, Barron sat on a bench outside the mall, his phone buzzing relentlessly with notifications. He glanced at the screen, but quickly locked it again. He had no interest in fueling the fire. What had started as a simple outing had spiraled into a national conversation, and he knew better than to jump into the chaos. Across town, the Oakwood Plaza Mall's official Facebook page and Google reviews were under siege. Comments flooded in faster than the moderators could manage. "Kicking out a kid over a hat? Seriously?" one user wrote. Another added, "Neutral spaces. You made it political the second you kicked him out. Bad move." Inside the mall, the staff felt the pressure. A group of employees huddled together, anxiously discussing the fallout. "This isn't good," one said, scrolling through the trending hashtags. "We're getting torched online." John, the manager, retreated to his office, shutting the door behind him. He opened his laptop and stared at the headlines already popping up. His jaw tightened as he read the comments, angry, relentless, and increasingly personal. "Maybe I overreacted," he muttered to himself, the reality of the situation sinking in. The weight of public opinion was crashing down on him, and it was relentless. But outside the storm of online chaos, Barron was already thinking of a way forward. He wasn't interested in revenge or petty arguments. He saw an opportunity to turn this moment, this firestorm of judgment, into something better. And with that thought, he stood up, determination in his step. They can fight over the hat, he thought to himself, but I'm going to do something meaningful with this. Stay tuned. What Barron does next will not only surprise everyone, but also send a powerful message. While the internet exploded with debates and finger-pointing, Barron Trump sat quietly in his room later that evening. The phone on his desk buzzed endlessly with messages, some supportive, some curious, and others outright rude. Instead of getting caught up in the noise, Barron opened his laptop and began typing. His mind wasn't on anger or retaliation, it was on finding a way to turn this chaotic moment into something meaningful. Everyone's so focused on the hat, he thought. But maybe I can shift their focus to something bigger. Barron had seen how small misunderstandings like this could spiral into ugly arguments, dividing people further. He didn't want to be part of that. Growing up in the public eye had taught him that while he couldn't control how others treated him, he could control how he responded. And that's exactly what he intended to do. The next morning, a post appeared on Barron's official social media accounts. A message so simple yet powerful, it immediately caught the world's attention. Yesterday, I was asked to leave a mall over a hat. That's okay, I respect their rules, even if I don't agree with them. But this situation showed me something bigger. How quickly we let small differences divide us. Instead of fighting, let's work together to create spaces where everyone feels heard. I'll start by doing my part. At the bottom of the post was an announcement, a community fundraiser to support local youth programs and promote open dialogue about respect and unity. Barron chose to hold it in a nearby community park, symbolically close to the mall where the incident happened. He called it Bridging Differences, a day for unity. The internet lit up all over again, but this time the tone had shifted. Support poured in. Comments flooded his post. This is leadership. Instead of drama, he's creating change. Respect. Turning a negative into a positive, more of this, please. People who had initially been divided over the incident now came together to applaud Barron's mature response. Local news outlets picked up the story, with headlines like, Barron Trump's message of unity inspires a community event. Back at the mall, the manager, John Whitaker, read the post in stunned silence. He hadn't expected Barron to respond this way, calm, gracious, and solution-driven. As he sat at his desk, John couldn't shake a thought that lingered in his mind. Maybe it's time I take a closer look at my own actions. What happens next will prove that even the smallest moments can inspire massive change. Within days, the quiet murmurs surrounding the incident turned into a buzz of anticipation. Barron Trump's announcement of a community fundraiser had sparked interest beyond just the locals. People were curious, how would this young man, who'd walked away so calmly, transform a moment of tension into something positive? Local businesses stepped up, eager to help. A bakery promised trays of cookies, a bookstore offered reading materials for kids, and volunteers began signing up to set up booths. Barron, determined to keep the focus on unity, worked tirelessly behind the scenes, reaching out to charities and youth programs. His calm but focused demeanor inspired those around him, showing maturity far beyond his years. The event was planned for the very mall where the confrontation had occurred, right outside the same entrance where everything had started. This bold decision caught the media's attention, turning Barron's story into headline news. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #BridgeNotAlls and #UnityOverDivision, fueling interest. But Barron stayed silent, avoiding interviews and instead focusing on his goal. He wanted the event to speak for itself. This isn't about me, he told a small team helping him. It's about showing we can respond to negativity with something good. As the morning of the event approached, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Curious crowds began forming even before setup was complete, with families, students, and onlookers gathering. The tension from the original incident seemed to fade, replaced by excitement. Little did anyone know, the most surprising part of this story was yet to come. The morning sun spilled across Oakwood Plaza Mall as the fundraiser came to life. Volunteers bustled around, setting up tables, balloons, and banners that read, "Unity over division. Together we rise." Families arrived with their kids. Curious locals leaned in to see what the event was all about, and a small stage was set near the entrance where everything had started. Barron Trump stood at the center of it, all calm, focused, and composed. Dressed simply, with no sign of the red hat that had sparked the controversy, he greeted visitors and thanked vendors for their support. Reporters and cameras hovered nearby, but Barron's attention remained on the purpose of the day, promoting community, kindness, and understanding. One by one, people stepped up to donate to local youth programs and charities Barron had partnered with. Some approached him quietly, shaking his hand and offering words of encouragement. "You turned something negative into something so positive," one older woman remarked. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, music, and a sense of unity. But as the crowd continued to grow, whispers started to spread someone unexpected was on their way to the event. As the event unfolded, filled with laughter, music, and unity, the mall manager stood just outside the crowd, watching from afar. His arms were crossed, but his face showed a mix of guilt and curiosity. Seeing so many people, families, kids, and even more staff come together for a cause made him feel uneasy about how the situation had escalated. After a moment of hesitation, the manager took a deep breath and walked toward Barron. The crowd parted slightly as he approached, their murmurs turning to silence. "Barron," the manager began awkwardly, his voice softer now, "I owe you an apology. I let my judgment cloud my actions, and I'm truly sorry." Barron turned, a calm smile on his face. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong," he said, extending his hand. The manager shook it firmly, his shoulders visibly relaxing. "Your event has brought so much good today," the manager added, looking around. "If there's any way I can help, count me in." Barron nodded. "We can always do more when we work together." That handshake marked more than an apology. It symbolized understanding, growth, and a lesson learned for everyone watching. The fundraiser was a resounding success. Donations poured in, volunteers cheered, and the event raised far more than Barron ever expected. News stations picked up the story, showing clips of families enjoying the event and Barron's heartfelt speech about unity and kindness. The next day, the mall released a public statement apologizing for the incident and pledging to host future events that promote inclusivity and community support. The manager, now humbled, promised to ensure such misunderstandings would never happen again. Barron's actions inspired others far beyond the mall. Social media buzzed with praise, with hashtags like #UnityOverDivision trending nationwide. More importantly, his story encouraged people to look beyond appearances and work toward positive change. The event wasn't just about raising money, it was a reminder that small actions of kindness can create lasting ripples. As the camera panned over the now empty park, Barron stood with his friends, watching the sunset. "This is just the beginning," he said softly, his eyes shining with determination. "Sometimes, it only takes one small act to bring people together."